Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm so happy to be here at Sotheby's London in person and out of my attic finally. I'm only sorry that I can't have you all with me in person too. We've all had to become amateur TV stars and producers this lockdown. I hope we do a good job. It's very timely that we're here today because Sotheby's has actually been in the news this week about their foraying into the digital art space and embracing digital currencies. This is a strong indicator of where the world is right now and where it is heading. It has certainly been a crazy year, a year like no other. And in this new world, we have relied on technology to survive. As parents and grandparents, we started to see our children's world and education and really got a taste like never before of where our children are because they live in this digital world all the time. I know that many of you have strong feelings about technology and technology use for children, as do I. The need for human interaction and human connection is so vitally important. Even the fact that I'm standing here talking to you tonight right via screen, as I mentioned before, I'd much rather be seeing all of you in front of me and connecting with you. But make no mistake about it, the next generation is living, interacting, communicating and connecting in a digital world, whether we like it or not. And look how we are reaching almost 400 people right now from 20 different countries because of technology. Jewish Interactive is not holding a debate about the pros and cons of technology. We are about accepting where our children are right now and using that to really enhance our children's knowledge and values for the better. As Sotheby's ventures into the future, embracing the digital art space, so too must we. If we don't get on that train for change that's going 100 miles an hour, and if we don't make sure that we have the right educational tools and platforms in place to engage with the world as it is, then there will be a significant gap, leaving our Jewish children way behind. 10 years ago, Jewish Interactive saw this gap. And quietly, we started to build tools, resources, games, and everything that, in our opinion, was missing from the Jewish educational landscape in order to keep the next generation fully engaged. I've been a teacher for 20 years, and I know that children learn best through active learning. That's why Jewish Interactive creates interactive experiences for children. Active learning, not just passively watching videos, is crucial. And Jewish Interactive are experts in delivering online learning in an active way, using effective methods such as creativity, gaming, and competition to ensure deep levels of learning and understanding. We continued to build, and then COVID hit. No one was expecting what happened, but because of our preparation and the amazing talent and knowledge that we have accrued over the years, we were in the position to jump into action and support globally over 500,000 Jewish children, teachers, and families. We have been inundated with parents and teachers telling us how Jewish Interactive has helped them get through lockdown, keeping Jewish education going, and has even helped the teachers and parents themselves by giving them skills they did not have before, but had to learn fast. It's clear to recognize that the work we are doing should no longer be considered a luxury, but a necessity. Today's Jewish kids have phones, computers, and tablets, and if they don't have the digital tools to learn with these devices, then they will be left behind. As a nation, the Jewish people were always known as the people of the book. They were known as the people who were in the forefront of education. And I feel that we've actually lost that title because there has been so little investment in this space. Judaism has always been about having the responsibility of educating the next generation of proud and knowledgeable Jews, yet the investment in our religious digital space has been almost insignificant in comparison. How are we meant to pass on our traditions, our values, our skills and knowledge if we don't communicate at the place where the next generation is at? By continuing to educate them with only worksheets and books, we are doing a disservice to our religion. We have to move forward, whether we like it or not. And that's what Jewish Interactive is doing proudly and unashamedly to ensure the continuity of the Jewish people.
I'm Marvin Sampson. I was bar mitzvahed. I was confirmed. I was taught the old-fashioned way, honestly. Their way of learning is with the electronic devices. And so it's taken boring learning, memorizing, and made it fun for them.
For me, it's extremely important that my children understand everything they possibly can about Judaism. I feel very disconnected at times with my son, in particular with video games. Using Jewish Interactive has encouraged them to believe in themselves, and my 9-year-old daughter as well. They've been doing this for many years, and Jewish Interactive just gave them the tools. I can barely make a PowerPoint presentation. Teacher may say to them, okay, tonight, make up a game. They each go home, they individually create their own game. They didn't even realize they were studying the content.
I was able to connect with my grandchildren. They were able to connect with me in a digital world. We learned from each other. We shared thoughts. The app is just an ideal tool. It improves the communication between a parent, grandparent, and a child.
JI has really changed the way my children approach the Jewish side of their education. I see through my children how these customs and beliefs are going to stay with them forever. JI are current what's going on now in the world with technology and what our future is really going to be like.
To see how this aids in their education is simply marvelous.
We choose to give today, and we hope you will join us too. Jewish Interactive is the future of Jewish engagement and connection for the next generation.
This post-COVID era is the beginning of a new way of educating our children. We are pioneers in this area. We have built the infrastructure to reach every Jewish child, no matter where they live, and in fact have become the largest Jewish school in the world. There's lots of discussion now on rethinking our lives and where best to invest in our community to build for the future. Now, more than ever, there is an opportunity to make a real change. If we care about the next generation's education, about Jewish continuity, then this is one of the most important things to support in our community. Jewish Interactive is a non-profit. We would not be able to survive if we were not a charity, because building educational content for the small Jewish world is not and will never be a profitable venture. Technology is changing Jewish childhood, and I ask you to please support Jewish Interactive and ensure future generations of proud and knowledgeable Jews. The link is in the chat, and any support you can give today will be greatly and sincerely appreciated. Thank you. I now have the pleasure of introducing Lisa Stevenson. At Sotheby's, Lisa works on the development, planning, and selling of Impressionist and modern art for the online and day sales. Lisa is involved in securing consignments through Europe for the Impressionist and modern art department, as well as advising continental collectors on both the selling and buying sides of the business. Of dual English and German descent, Lisa received an MA from Sotheby's Institute of Art, and prior to that, a degree in German and English law from the University of Cardiff. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be talking to you today from our New Bond Street galleries in London. And I'm going to be running you through a number of works from our Impressionist and Modern Art Day Sale. There are some works by Jewish artists, prominent Jewish artists, amongst others, that I would love to show to you this evening. I would just say that our Impressionist and Modern Art sales are open for bidding at the moment. They will be closing this Friday from midday. and we would be more than happy to help you with any questions you have. We have a Sotheby's office in Tel Aviv, and my colleagues there would also be delighted to help you if there's any help that they can offer, and anything that we can do to help further. So our Impressionist and Modern Art Day sales in March are characterized by a really broad range of material, and we have some real highlights in the sale. Some of the collections that I won't be able to show you this evening, but I'd love to discuss with you, include works from the collection of Marina Picasso. Marina Picasso was Pablo Picasso's granddaughter, and these works come to us from them and therefore boast incredible provenance. The works span ceramics, works on paper, and really give you an insight into the artist's studio practice and how he was working. So you can see a lot of motifs and forms that come to fruition in some of his more final canvases, and also a lot of very complete works on paper. They're real gems of the sale. And we also have a very strong selection of surrealist artworks, including works from by Max Ernst, and also a portrait by Leonardo, which is an exceptional portrait and sort of finds its way in contemporary culture as well, as it served as inspiration to Madonna in her music Bedtime. So if you go to the music video, you'll see the influence of that painting, but you can find more information about all those works on our website. The sales has, as I say, a broad range of material, anything from around £4,000 low estimate to our top lots that are in at about £600,000 low estimate. So the first work that I wanted to discuss with you is this painting by Marc Chagall. Now, Marc Chagall was born to Jewish parents and was actually originally born Moshe Chagall. And his faith was very important to him. And in a lot of his paintings, you do see references to his Jewish faith. And he himself in the 1920s said that he would not have been the artist that he became if it weren't for his faith. Now, this painting that we have in the sale is a really striking and vibrant example. And you see a lot of the motifs that he is really well known for. One of these, and one of the key motifs in his oeuvre, is the romantic couple floating through space. And it's often said that this is inspired for his love of his first wife, Bella. And academics have also speculated as to whether the floating of the objects in his paintings, in many of his works, is not a play on words of his own, playing on the Yiddish word Luftmensch, a person of the air who was, academically highly regarded and very knowledgeable, but also equally, many people have just said it instills a sort of dreamlike quality into his works, and it shouldn't be read into too far. Another motif that comes up a lot in Chagall's works, and something that is hugely celebrated, and we see again here, is the Bouquet of Flowers. And Chagall he'd said that he didn't like the idea of painting flowers that would wilt and that they would deteriorate. And so he kept them very vibrant. And you see in some of his strongest works really vibrant bouquets of flowers with almost crisp petals, very, very sharp colors. And now this work is from 1980. Chagall's his career lasted a very long time. It spans 8 decades, and saw a lot of changes, but these motifs prevail. And this is a very strong example by the artist. We do also have further works by the artist in the sale. And now I've understood that there is going to be a poll for you, so there is now a question, I believe, for you all to have a look at.
In 2012, Sotheby's set the record price at the time for an artwork auction sale. Which monumental piece sold for almost $120 million? Was it A, Orange, Red, Yellow by Mark Rothko, B, The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, C, The Scream by Edvard Munch, or D, Moule by Claude Monet? Please choose your answer using the poll. The answer is C, The Scream by Edvard Munch. Bidding opened at $40 million, and it took just 12 minutes before being sold to US Jewish billionaire Leon Black for $119.9 million.
So the next artist that I want to discuss with you is Francis Picabia. Now, Picabia was not a Jewish artist himself, but he was very influenced by Camille Pizarro, the renowned Jewish artist, and also by Alfred Sisley. Now, Picabia is very well known for his surrealist works that he worked on during the 20s, but unbeknownst to some people, he also worked on a series of very impressionistic works between the years of 1903 and 1908. And we are lucky enough to have 3 works from this time in our sale. I show 2 of them to you here, and then you can find more information about the other works online. Now, Picabia's impressionistic works are really a very, very beautiful and serene example of him employing impressionistic techniques of an interplay of light and allowing the optical colors to only really resolve when looked at from afar. So all of these paintings, this work, the work to the right of me, and the other work, really show this fantastic, the way in which he really managed to capture that light. In particular, I'm not sure if you can see it so well on the video, but the impasto, the thickness of the pigment in both works is really very, very striking and shows a real talent on his part. I believe we now have another poll for you.
As of 2021, the most expensive artwork sold at auction is Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi. But how much did it sell for in 2017? Was it A, $150 million, B, $250 million, C, $350 million, or D, $450 million? Please choose your answer now. The answer is D. Salvator Mundi sold for $450 million. For many years, this painting was attributed to a pupil of Da Vinci. It was previously sold in 2005 for just $10,000 to a consortium who spent the next 6 years verifying the authenticity of the masterpiece.
So I've just discussed Camille Pizarro and the influence that he had on Picabia, and we do have a really lovely work on paper by the artist in the sale, as well as a couple of other works in our sales in Paris this week. So I encourage you to have a look and see a little bit more about the artist online. And in this particular work, you really see things that Pizarro is really very celebrated for. So at the time when Pizarro was working, he was departing from the tradition of painting nobility, more higher figures in society, and he felt that every person was worthy of being painted and worthy of being a subject in his works. So his impressionistic works often see protagonists as washerwomen, people working in fields, peasants, really going about their daily life. And this was a remarkable change at the time in which he was doing this. So the present work, this pastel from 1875, is a really good example of how he's employing his impressionistic techniques. Again, as I mentioned previously about this sort of blurring of color to allow the picture to really render from afar and give you this idea of motion, this idea of what was going on outside. And here you see the workers in the field, which again fits with this idea of him having taken on this subject matter that was quite different to what had been done historically by artists. The next work that I want to discuss is this work here by Honoré Daumier. Now, Honoré Daumier, this is a perfect example of what I've just been discussing in terms of people whose subject matter was the nobility and aristocrats in society. And this particular work is a group of lawyers, and it's a really crisp and delicate example of exactly what Daumier is celebrated for. So his working, his almost sculptural working of the figures, the detail and the way in which their expression is so brilliantly captured in his characteristic palettes, you know, the black, the brown, the sort of quite muted tones. And they are sitting here in his wonderful picture here. Now, this picture is actually being sold pursuant to a restitution settlement. And that's something which adds a very interesting and layered history to the work. So Sotheby's has a restitution department. The department was set up in 1997, and the department is responsible for identifying objects that have been displaced from their rightful owners. A lot of these objects were displaced during the years of 1933 and 1945. And Sotheby's identifies these objects and looks to try and restitute them to the rightful heirs. So obviously, you may well be familiar with many instances of these sorts of cases that come up in the art world press, often high-profile cases where museums are restituting works that have been brought into their collection and actually displaced from the rightful heirs. And I know that there have been a number of stories recently, but for example, there was a Klimt that was discussed last week in the press from the Musée d'Orsay. So you see these high-profile cases, and often, you know, this does happen, and museums will be involved, and then the lawyers will be involved, and Sotheby's will become involved. But what happens more often from our side of things is that we and a lot of owners of works are not actually aware of the fact that there could be a restitution case on a work that they own. And our restitution department are very skilled and specialized in identifying which works should be, you know, have red flags and might well be something that are liable to this. So in the instance, for example, of this work, the work would have been consigned to sale by the owner. And in the process of doing the due diligence, doing the research, finding out more about the work, finding out more about its past, it became clear that it was actually a work that had been displaced from its rightful owners in 1933. Now, the sorts of red flags that we as a department and also that the restitution department do identify can be anything from labels on the backs of works that show the work was in a gallery that might have had forced sales. It can also be specific names that are red flags in provenance, as many works from their collection might have been displaced. All these sorts of things are red flags that are then further investigated. So in this instance, this work had actually been owned by Georg Kaspari and then Anna Kaspari after his death. So Georg Kaspari and Anna, they had a gallery, Galerie Kaspari, in Germany. And Georg died in a car crash in 1930, and Anna then had the work and continued to run the gallery. In 1933, when the gallery was no longer doing so well due to the fact that it had Jewish owners, due to the fact that it was not really acceptable for people to be frequenting the gallery as much, they were forced to get bank loans to help try and support the business. And they used artworks as collateral. So this particular work was used as collateral and then was actually forced sale. So subject to forced sale, the bank sold the work, and the proceeds never went to the heirs, and nor did the artwork. It was never returned. So then the artwork changes hands many times over the last years and had quite a few different owners in the meantime. And then adding to the rich history of the work, it actually ended up in the collection of the British sculptor Henry Moore. And Henry Moore was a huge admirer of Daumier's work because of the sculptural quality that he gave his figures. So he really looked at him as an artist that he admired very much. And this work is now being sold as a settlement pursuant to the Kaspari heirs and the owner. And so ultimately it has a very positive outcome, but it shows another layer to what we do that I think many people don't always understand, that this is quite a big part of our jobs. Now there is going to be another question.
Which is the largest and most visited art gallery in the world? Is it A, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, B, the Louvre in Paris, C, the National Museum of China in Beijing, or D, the British Museum in London? Please select your answer now. The answer is B, the Louvre in Paris. At almost 3 times the size of the British Museum, the Louvre spans 72,000 square meters and has just under 10 million visitors every year, except during the last year.
So the next painting I want to show you is by Jewish artist Max Lieberman. This painting, Pferderennen, the horse race from 1914, is a really strong example of Max Lieberman's German impressionistic style. So Lieberman was quite well known and is quite well known for his portraiture and quite traditional paintings, but he also was a real advocate and prominent figure in the growth of Impressionism in Germany. And he was one of the founders of the Berlin Succession, and then was president of the Berlin Succession for quite some time. And what he was responsible for was really bringing what we see in the works of Monet, Pizarro, what we've discussed previously, this idea of action, motion, painting outside, to German Impressionism. So here in this particular work, you really see this because of the motion that he's brought into the race course, and this idea of a sort of daily activity being a subject matter worthy of painting. You really get a nice idea here in the impasto of how beautifully he's painted the work to get this motion through the light, the reflection that the raised areas of pigment bring. And it's just a very strong example from 1914 of his horse works. He started painting horses around 1900, and they are very popular subject matter by the artist. And this is, to me, a really very strong example of one of these works. I think there's now going to be another question.
Which artist's full name is 20 words long? Is it A, Pablo Picasso, B, Salvador Dali, C, Francisco Goya, or D, Henri Matisse? Please choose your answer now. The answer is A, Pablo Picasso. His full name, as it appears on his birth certificate, is Pablo Diego José Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno María de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santísima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso, but his friends just called him Pablo.
So the next work is this fantastic composition from 1914 by Polish Jewish artist Henri Haydn. And Haydn moved to Paris and became very, very influenced by Cubism and the work of Picasso, Braque, Gris, and what they were doing at the time. And this particular work dates from 1914, which is the time at which Haydn is really experimenting with the beginnings of what his Cubist paintings became. And you really do see a nod to some of the most renowned names of Cubism, with the bottle, the flattened planes, these flattened motifs the dimension of the tabletop really sort of obscured. And you see this, a real nod to, as I mentioned, Picasso, Braque, and the other protagonists of Cubism at the time. And it's a really striking painting with a really very strong palette that we're delighted to have in the sale. When Haydn was in Paris, he was associated with the School of Paris, and other works by artists from the School of Paris we do have in the sale. Other works by Jewish artists from the School of Paris include works by Jules Pasquin, a work by Moise Kisling. So I encourage you to have a look on our website and find out more about those artists. But they were all working at the same time in Paris and doing wonderful things.
Last year, in June 2020, Sotheby's ran their first virtual COVID-friendly sale, auctioning an iconic Francis Bacon triptych for $74 million. But what is a triptych? Is it A, a painting that has another painting on top of it? B, an artwork painted by 3 people? C, a bug you can pick up on holiday? Or D, a work of art divided into 3 sections? Please select your answer now. The answer was D. A triptych is a work of art divided into 3 sections. Another famous Francis Bacon triptych featured his friend and rival, Jewish artist Lucian Freud. 3 studies of Lucian Freud sold in 2013 for $142 million, another record at the time.
So the final group of works I wanted to discuss with you this evening are actually the group of works that start our sale. It's a group of works by Kurt Schwitters. Now, Kurt Schwitters wasn't himself a Jewish artist, but he was very close friends and collaborated with a lot of Jewish artists in Germany. And following his time in Germany, he spent some time in Norway when he was forced to leave, and then came to the UK. In the UK, Schwitters became very close with Edith Thomas, who he gave the nickname Wanty, because she always asked him, want tea? He worked on a number of collages and other projects in the UK that he had started in Germany. So we have a collection of works we have with very strong provenance. So there's a collection of works from the Edith Thomas collection that have gone by descent to the present owners and are now included in the sale. We're very lucky to have those in the sale. Obviously, I've discussed provenance a little bit this evening, but it's hugely important and very exciting when you do have things with such a clean line of provenance. So those works include this work here, this little collage to the side, and then another work that you can find online. And when Schwitters was in the UK, he continued working on a project. So he basically, in 1919, he coined the term März, which was taken from a fragment that he was using in one of his collages, which said Commerzbank in it. And it was Schwitters' critique of the commercial world, but it became a really defining word throughout his practice. And he then started something called the Märzbau in Hanover in Germany, which the first Märzbau was basically 8 rooms in his parents' house. And he worked and collaborated with other artists and created this sort of immersive structure and incredible, very, very sculptural artwork with all sorts of different objects lying around and sculptures that he created and collages. He never felt that he managed to complete that properly, and it was destroyed during the war. So he worked on a further 2 Märzbau in Norway. And then when he arrived in the UK, he still wanted to finish this project. And with funding from the Museum of Modern Art in New York, that he had originally been given a grant of $3,000 to help him repair his Hanover Märzbau. When he realized that wasn't going to be possible, he used the money to then work on a new Meersbouw in the UK. And this structure here is a really incredible sculpture that was part of this Meersbouw that he did in Yorkshire. And basically, he had found a barn and turned it into a new Meersbouw, a Meersbaan, as he called it. And it was a very, very incredible work if you look at images from the time. And there are some fantastic period images online where you can see, you know, this work in situ in this wonderful structure. And then the final work, again, talking about provenance, is this incredible collage called Miss Blanche, and it's from 1921. So it's very close to the beginning of his Merz works, this sort of career-defining term. And it's incredible. It's got little bits of packaging from tobacco companies. So it says Miss Blanche Egyptian, all the different tobacco packaging that is then layered upon itself for this collage. And this actually, again, celebrates brilliant provenance. It comes from the collection of Werner Schmalenbach, who was a very renowned and celebrated art historian and curator in Germany. And his support to Schwitter's work and you know, curation of Schwitter's exhibitions, and he authored many books on Schwitter's. So it really, all these works boast fantastic provenance. So that's everything from me. Thank you so very much for listening. I hope that I've shown you some things that have been interesting, and maybe you've learned something new or just enjoyed looking at the pictures. If you do have any questions, please do reach out. I'd be more than happy to help you, and so would the rest of the team, and it would be lovely to hear from you. The sale is open until Friday, and this is just a very small section of what we have included in the sale. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks, Sotheby's. I don't know about you, but I've learned so much. It's amazing to see the history and hear about all these wonderful pieces of art. I'm just standing here in awe. It's been an incredible evening, an incredible afternoon, wherever you are. And I just wanted to thank you for joining us here today and to remind you that we really do need your support. So anything you can give today will be so appreciated. I want to take this opportunity to wish you a happy Pesach, a happy Passover holiday, wherever you are, and keep safe and well. And thanks for joining us. Bye.